if you read the game press, there's been some articles about whether games are using old engines or new engines. Specifically, I think they talked to Naughty Dog and Infinity Ward and saying like, hey, for the next gen consoles, are you using old engines or new engines? And both of them said, hey, yeah, we're using our current technology. And I think while this could be frowned upon in previous generations, I think there's not a huge technological jump that would necessitate rethinking how you do things. Because if you look at moving from PS2 to PS3, the whole idea of a programmable graphics pipeline was completely new, and that required rethinking and redoing the way you do a lot of things. But I mean, there's tessellation shaders, and there's I forget, geometry shaders, hull shaders. There's all sorts of different points you can insert programs into the graphics pipeline with the new generation consoles, at least I assume, assuming they have like DirectX 11 class hardware, which they both do. But I don't think those will sort of require a reinvention of your technology to use, and also I don't think people will really be taking advantage of those for a while. I think one of the other reasons why it's much more difficult to start new tech is because game engines are huge. We're beyond the point where a game is just like, oh, a million lines of code with engine and everything. They're much larger, and so to take all of those tools and all of that code and just flush it down the toilet and say goodbye, we're starting with blank files is very difficult. And I think one of the main reasons it's difficult is because then you essentially have to have the technology sort of ready when you're trying to do the art and the design. Because without a tool chain, you can have people design in a vacuum or work on art in a vacuum, but it's not actually that useful. I mean, they could prototype stuff in the previous generation tools and tech, but then at that point it's like, when they switch, what do? Flush everything down the toilet and say, okay, we're doing these new things? And also, every time you're working with a new engine and new tech and it hasn't been sort of battle tested, you run into a lot of problems, and it slows down production. And so I think at this point it's too difficult, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of complete from scratch rewrites. And I think the only people that can really afford to do that are sort of new studios starting up, or the big tech companies like Unreal. But I mean, I don't know if Unreal 4 is a complete rewrite, but I mean, to some extent, if it is, that's almost sort of bad, because then everyone using Unreal 3 will have difficulty switching over, because all of their internal code is essentially built off Unreal 3. And I mean, I think we're already going to see several sort of Unreal 3 games released on next generation consoles, probably before we even see an Unreal 4 game. And I think specifically Crimson Dragon, which I am super excited about, for Xbox One is built on Unreal 3, and when they made the jump from 360 to Xbox One, I guess they just ported Unreal 3, which I mean is probably not a huge amount of work, just because I imagine Unreal 3 has DirectX 11 support on the PC side of things. So I think instead of focusing on what the underlying tech is, I think we should be focusing on the games. Is this game cool? Do we think Naughty Dog can make an awesome PS4 game with their PS3 technology? And I think the answer is definitely yes. And so, I mean, I don't know how many people are like, oh, we should rewrite tech, but I think this is something I think about a lot now because certainly, I felt like, oh, engine rewrites, you gotta start from scratch. But now, especially because computers are getting more and more efficient, I think about, what is the way I can create the best game and how can I create that the most efficiently.